Welcome to the Privy. I am Courtney, and I am joined by two friends of mine for this blessed episode. How are you guys doing today?
Pretty fantastic.
Yeah, I'm doing well.
I'm doing radio voice right now.
I know. I can tell that now.
Hi, everyone.
And suddenly we're on SNL.
To my right is Kat. Kat, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Kat, as you said.
Yes.
I am a lesbian. I am from a small town in Pennsylvania. I've lived in New York for about 15 years. I'm an actor and a writer.
Fun.
Mm-hmm. And did I mention lesbian?
You did mention that.
Okay.
That's y'all know how I appreciate
Okay,
it.
good,
I appreciate
good,
it.
good.
How about you, Jess?
I'm Jess.
I know. How about you, Jess? Jess.
I am also a lesbian. Is that why I'm here?
Maybe. Maybe.
I am originally from Miami, Florida. I've been in New York for almost 9 years, and I'm a singer-songwriter.
Mm-hmm.
And I just recently started my own bow tie company.
I did not. I forgot you were a singer-songwriter.
Mm-hmm.
When she asked me prior to you arriving, I said bow tie designer, but I totally forgot about that.
I do a little bit of lots of stuff.
Oh, Miss Thing. And a playwright, too, kind of, right? Aren't you?
I'm working on something.
Not to put your business on the street, because it
something.
Was your intro and not mine. My bad.
No, this is good. It reminds me of the things because my brain is not.
Can you
on
write
yet.
a play and I star in it?
Uh-huh.
When
We
Courtney,
should actually talk about this.
Do you want to
Done.
start it too?
I need to be
Okay.
somewhere involved
Okay.
in this situation.
I'm actually working on something that you may be interested in. We should chat about it later.
Oh, I love this. I've heard.
So the reason I do have you here, not only because you are my lesbian friends, but in always like creating content, I'm always like curious about the things I don't know. And so when preparing for this episode, I mean, there are a lot of things that we'll get into in particular, but I just wanted you guys to talk about first, like how you came out and how that experience was for the both of you.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Go.
It was the year 2003. There was a snowstorm in New York, and I was supposed to drive with my girlfriend at the time, who was much older than me, and that'll come in later. But we were supposed to drive to Pennsylvania, where I'm from, and I was going to finally tell my parents face-to-face that I'm gay, because this is something I had known forever, and all of my friends knew, some of my family knew, but my parents and my brothers didn't know. But the snowstorm was sort of too crazy, and I had the bright idea that I would write a letter, and that my girlfriend, who was much older, and she was also an actress, and like sort of very dramatic and over the top, decided to edit the letter. So she edited the letter, and I faxed it.
Wait, hold on.
Oh, no.
Hold on. You faxed. Hold on. I did not know about this.
No.
Kat,
I should have gone first. That is.
You faxed.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing.
To this day, I think my parents, like, the idea of receiving a fax is so traumatizing.
Of course.
No, and also, no one faxed anything ever,
Right.
really,
I
except
was
like
gonna say,
a
it was
doctor's.
2003, but
Yeah.
like still.
Even in 2003, we were trying to move away from
I know.
faxing.
It's not my proudest moment, I have
That's
to
kind
say.
of amazing, though. That's an amazing story.
Definitely faxed it. I had to call my mom and be like, Mom, turn on the fax machine. She thought I was getting an award or had some sort of wonderful news to share. I mean, it was wonderful news for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it
How
came
old
out
were
in
you?
a fax about 23.
Wow.
And it's kind of been a rough road. Who would think with that brilliant...
That was a really good start.
Yeah, that was a really good start. A fax machine.
Yeah, it's been a little rough
Now,
with
did
Mom
she
and Dad.
reply via fax, or did y'all talk on the phone?
Oh,
I
they
need to-
called immediately.
Okay.
And it's been sort of very dramatic ever since. My parents are very Catholic. We've come a long way.
Yeah.
I'm 38 years old, and it's taken a really long time. I had a conversation with my dad about it not that long ago, and he said, I know that it's been X amount of years, but I've only really started accepting it
Oh,
now.
wow.
And yeah, they were trying to pray away the gay for a long time. But I love my mom and dad, and we've come to sort of a good place now, and
Yeah.
there's always work to be done. We're very different.
Yeah.
but it's kind of cool to have this sort of challenge, I guess. I don't know, some way.
How about you?
Really
Do you have
lovely.
one? Facts? I'm trying to think of what did you
Nothing
put in a
worse.
bottle. I mean, how can you go back from that? Like, write one of those letters, put it in the bottle, and just sailed it away to the...
So I M'd my mom. No.
A Facebook tag.
I sort of a little bit got to bypass the like big coming out. It happened in a dramatic way, but not by choice.
Okay.
I was sort of dating my best friend in high school when I was 16, and you know, we were still having like sleepovers and stuff, and just no one knew.
So nice.
Yeah, right?
I like that. So nice.
And one time my mom just walked in at an inopportune time when I was making out with said friend. So
wait, okay.
the jig was up.
Oh, wait a minute. So what was the response, like the reaction?
Well, it was particularly awkward because she was giving us a ride to a sleepover at our other friend's house. And she was like coming in to be like, let's go. And I like always kind of locked my bedroom door, but I didn't that time. And she did like the knock and open at the same time. And I mean, I jumped up. Clothing was on, thank God.
Good.
Thank God. But it was still like awkward enough. And it was just silent car ride. She still let me go to sleepover, which score.
That's pretty good, yeah. That's
I
pretty
can't
good.
believe it.
Score.
Yeah.
But just like really awkwardly silent car ride, and then silence for I'd say 2-3 days afterwards.
Wow.
Which it was just me and her in the house, so
Oh, wow.
the silence
Talk
was
about
deafening.
awkward. Yeah. How did it come? Like, how is it now, and how has it progressed? And what was, I guess, like the turning point for her? Do you think, if you know?
Well, according to her, she was more, and I'm so grateful that my mother is who she is. But she was more upset that it was some kind of lie, like that I didn't just tell her, and that she had to find out that way.
Yeah.
She wasn't particularly upset to find out that I was gay. It was more that that I didn't share it with her.
Yeah.
And then it was just, I think, concern over like how this was going to play out, and also my girlfriend at the time and I both had boyfriends.
Messy, Jess, you a messy.
So much scandal.
Scandal. Oh, at the ripe age of 6, you said
16. So she was like afraid of people getting hurt and et cetera, which I, or more so my feelings
was
getting
about
hurt.
that.
Yeah.
Thank God.
And ultimately I ended up dating that girl through college. And,
Oh, wow.
my mom's been awesome through everything. I can't complain. And in Miami in particular, I feel really fortunate to have grown up where I did and how I did. I feel like sexuality was really fluid there. And I didn't really experience a lot of pushback or turmoil because of my sexual preference.
That brings me to a really good question, because when I first thought about this episode, my first topic, I guess I was going to call the episode, "What is it like to be a lesbian in New York in 2018?" Because from a standpoint of being a gay man, it's very freeing. Like, we exist here, and this is like our Mecca, I feel. Like, if you're not in New York or LA, you're really living free, and like, it's accepting, and you can just be who you are no matter what, for the most part.
Right.
How is that for lesbians? Is that the same? Is that New York that same type of feeling? Is there a place where you find it a little bit more comfortable?
I mean, I feel like New York is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Sometimes I forget, and then I go somewhere else,
Yeah.
especially when I have a girlfriend.
Yes.
And I go somewhere else, and I'm a little,
Yeah.
afraid to maybe hold her hand, and I don't want to feel that way, but I also want us to be able to be safe, and I want her to be safe. And New York is kind of just like a Mecca.
Yeah.
And LA too, I guess. I haven't spent a lot of time in LA, but this is what I hear.
Yeah. And you were saying to Miami, is it like that in Miami as well, or?
It depends.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends. I feel like it's actually weirdly harder to be a gay man in Miami just because of,
Really?
in certain cultures. I'm saying this because, I'm also Cuban, so I have like a particular view.
Yes.
But like in the Hispanic culture, I think that's a little bit more challenging.
Yeah.
Because your men are supposed to be very
like
macho.
Yeah. So interesting.
But yeah, no, overall, I would say that it's a lot more accepting there. At least that was my experience.
Yeah.
Maybe I just got really lucky with the group of friends and family that I had, but yeah.
Now, in something that kind of segue to this, I am always like obsessed with like representation of LGBTQ people in media. So I'm just going to jump right into it. What do you guys, in particularly to the lesbian, the L in LGBTQ, what is your stance? What are your feelings on like your representation as a lesbian in TV and film?
I remember, like, was it 1997 when Ellen came out? Was it something crazy long ago?
Yeah, it was in the 90s. Yes.
Yeah.
And I wasn't allowed to watch that episode.
Really?
But I, like, snuck into the living room while my parents were having this. I mean, meanwhile, I'm 17 or whatever at the time, but I'm terrified of my parents figuring out that I'm gay. And that was, like... That was wild to me. And I feel like then after that happened and all of that backlash for Ellen and she lost her show and it was really terrible for her, I felt like there was just a really long, dry spell of very few lesbians on TV and in film. And if they were there, it was like a weird representation. Like you're having sex and you're just like touching someone's shoulder gently or like laughing. But it's crazy in the last even just 5 years, it's changed so drastically, and it's really nice. Yeah. And it's really great to see, like, lesbian sex portrayed in an authentic way and relationships portrayed in an authentic way. And I feel like it's changing a lot. It still, has a long way to go, but I think it's a lot better than it was.
And, like, I feel like the stories that were being told, they always had to end in some sort of tragedy, which...
Totally.
Yeah, be it suicide or like murder, or she ends up with a dude even though she was never straight, or maybe she was. I don't know, but yeah, I feel like we're getting more authentic stories now as well. I think Carol was a really interesting turning point because that was the first kind of like mainstream big Hollywood film with like these big name actresses that portrayed this beautiful love story, and it wasn't even necessarily about being a lesbian. It was just about the story, which was really nice.
Which is so interesting because I think that's what that's why I always challenge like Hollywood with, because we've seen so many times, even as a gay man, seeing that flamboyant gay character, and it's always like about the gay agenda, like driving it home instead of just telling a story about being gay. You know what I'm saying? Like, or about being in love, or it's always like zoomed in onto that guy. It's funny, you both said some things that I found online. One is that a lot of lesbians on TV and film, they get killed off. Like more than any other why do you think
there was a period of time where that was it was kind of like laughable.
But I never was able to find in anything like why, like, or how that all came about. Like, what was the thought process behind that and why?
Know.
It's the weirdest thing.
Maybe it was like they could only sustain having a gay woman on the show for so long, and the ratings would plummet after. So they were like, let's do this.
But do it for 3 episodes and she's done. I think the average was like 3 episodes.
Kill her off.
And then something else that I think you mentioned earlier is that I didn't know that lesbians were so over-sexualized. Like, I knew they were sexualized, but I didn't know to the extent that they were over-sexualized. A lot of the characters. One particular essay they wrote about the L Word, which is one of my favorite shows in history, and I want to hear your take on that.
Yeah. Same.
And they even said that was over-sexualized. Do you think that was the case?
I disagree. I think it was under-sexualized. I agree. And Jennifer Beals should have been naked more.
I definitely agree with that.
My problem with how lesbians have been portrayed a lot of the time is that they're under-sexualized, and that these women are actually, they just love each other for their minds and their personalities, and obviously that's part of why you fall in love with a person. Yeah. But gay women love having sex with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Some women who aren't gay love having sex with each other. And no, I thought that the L Word did a pretty good job of that.
I think they did a really brilliant job.
Yeah.
And it's coming back, y'all. Did you
Yeah. The only thing is I can't find out when is it actually coming back.
Know.
I know Showtime
I just got
is
the little teaser, and
is
that was enough for me.
It's the same cast?
I think so.
I think so. To the same. I know
just
they're
want
in
them to bring
development.
Carmen back, but
Which one's Carmen?
She was with Shane. Shane left her at the altar. Spoiler alert.
Oh, God.
Many years later. But
God, I don't remember how it ended.
she was
so
like the hot
sexy.
Hispanic.
Sarah Shahi.
Or something.
I think.
I'm not sure.
Remember that. I do remember that. So you guys would love to see the reboot of L Word.
Yeah.
I'd like to be on the reboot of
Well,
the L Word.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Just call Showtime.
This is also an audition for... I'm going to miss Mia Kirshner, though. I loved Jenny.
Yeah, I did too.
Jenny
I had a love-hate. She got real annoying for a while.
Season 2, she was a bit wonky.
That
like
was
that was
the carnival
Yeah,
days.
it was so crazy.
that was
I'm just very confused as to what happened. Another thing that really was a couple of things. So lesbian representation dropped dramatically in 2017. And this was information by GLAAD. Down 16 percentage points to 17% of all LGBTQ characters. Lesbian representation is also down on cable to 20% from 22% from the prior year. What do you think about that? Do you guys notice the... But I'm saying, do you guys notice the lack thereof the representation?
I do. I mean, that's part of why I miss and cherished the L Word so much, because I didn't really get to see that sort of thing a lot. There's not a lot of TV or film or whatever that's for me.
Yeah.
And there's no network either. I didn't realize that either.
Oh, no, there's not.
Because Logo is gay men.
I think,
Yeah.
Didn't there used to be, or for a second there was... No.
I don't think so.
That was in my
in
my dreams.
Was that in the facts?
No, we just get
I faxed that to NBC. There was a really good lesbian show that was similar to the L Word, but that was it took place in Scotland.
Lip Service.
Yes, of course. So good, right?
So good.
That was also, but that was a long time ago.
Tragedy and ended abruptly.
Yeah, lots of death as well.
Lots of
I
death.
don't even know what y'all are talking about.
Yeah.
Is it something I should watch? What was
honestly,
it on?
And that's another thing. If you weren't looking for it, I'm constantly seeking things like this. So
much. That's what I find.
And if you're not looking for it, you can't find it. It's not on a major network or on even a streaming network. It's just
So what are you guys looking forward to seeing? What is an ideal of, in this day and age, if you had to create I don't want to say a lesbian story, but if you wanted to create something like that, what would it be? What would that story be, and what would it encompass, and how it relates to today's?
Wow. I've thought about this so many times, and now that I'm being asked, I'm totally
blank.
No.
I was about to say, you did?
No, you did. No, I did. Yes.
So for me, it's always the complexity of characters and showcasing
the whole person.
And it goes beyond being masculine or feminine, but really showing just an everyday gay man just existing in the world.
Yeah.
I think
we never get to see that.
Yeah, I think we are often in media kind of extreme. It's either really harsh or it's just really great. And there's not that in between kind of girls type of platform where it's just real shit is happening.
Right. And we're not judging the characters based on the fact that they're gay.
Yeah.
We're just watching them as human beings.
Exactly, which I think that the L Word did more than any other LGBT show at all. Even Queer as Folk or whatever, gay, straight, whatever.
Love that, though.
You really do. You really do hone in on the relationships and how they deal with it, and love and cheating and just all of that, whatever, businesses and.
Yeah, I think that's all about people who are gay or have had, or who are curious about what it's like to be a gay man or a gay woman, currently. Like, I've been catching up on The Sopranos. I never watched The Sopranos. And it's an amazing show. And it like, I feel like what's cool about it is that they don't comment on the characters. They just, like, let these people.
Yeah.
They let Tony Soprano be Tony Soprano,
Yeah.
and you can't believe half the stuff he does and says. But they don't comment on it. And I feel like that's an extreme example, but I feel like with gay characters, yes, we're always commenting on it. Or, like, you know, a gay woman can't have a bad day or do something mean to someone else. Everything has to be depicted
it's through like a filter.
Sure, yeah. Because
Yeah.
it's like, oh, well, she did that because she's a lesbian. You know?
All lesbians are like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you guys find, and I'm going off topic a little bit and I'll go back, do you find that there is a gay versus lesbian divide?
That's interesting because
Yeah, I just went there. I just switched the topic.
Well, this has come up so many times throughout my life. Like, and people telling me that there is.
Yeah.
I personally haven't felt that, with the exception of a few isolated incidents where maybe I went to a gay bar where I felt like, you know, the men there were catty and, like, didn't want a lesbian in their bar or whatever. But that's not my experience, generally speaking.
Yeah.
Same. I feel like also now with the current political climate and everything going on, and I feel like people are feeling this need to sort of come together more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, I don't feel that, but I do. It's been a topic, but I haven't had too many experiences with that.
Yeah, I haven't either. Like, I was coming from the same as you. I was like, I've never noticed it because I've had lesbian friends throughout time, but you do hear about, like, this this perception that, like, we don't get along. Like, there's a
which bums
like
me
a
out. I
friction.
don't know where that came from.
Yeah, I don't know. Even when I was, like, looking it up, I couldn't find any specific examples, but I remember they spoke about, like, ACT UP during the times of the AIDS crisis and how a lot of lesbians and gays really work together with that.
Right.
And then the same thing with equality and, like, marriage. And I think we're just seeing it again with, like you said, the political climate, which I find very, very fascinating.
Yeah. I wonder if I wonder if it's just the perception. I don't know that it's actually the reality anymore, or if it was at any point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might just be another way. It's like a conspiracy theory to divide us.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I don't know. That might not be true.
Now, on to some current issues. Cynthia Nixon.
Who's that? I'm kidding.
Is running for mayor. Correct?
I know.
Governor,
sorry.
But
Governor. Oh my
it's
God, I'm always...
It's okay.
Yeah,
I thought
I
you
knew what you meant.
We
Don't
knew.
worry.
We knew.
We're
We knew.
rolling
We
with
knew.
it.
I'm glad y'all corrected me. Governor, what are your thoughts on that? Hello? So, is this on?
Do you want to start?
You know, when I first heard about it, I was like, huh. I don't know how I feel about that. I love her as an actress and person, but I actually, to be totally honest, I didn't realize how much of an activist she is and how politically involved she has been. Had I known that, I might have not had that initial kind of like skepticism. But I actually watched a video of her at Stonewall a couple nights ago talking about her race and actually responding to something negative that was said.
But it was about the other lady that I can't think of her name.
Christine Quinn.
Oh, excuse me. Oh, so y'all
we know about all the lesbians.
Yeah. Okay, so I want you to...
So originally when I heard, I was like, yes. You know, I also respect Cynthia Nixon. I really think she's a fantastic actor, and she seems to be a really smart, cool, seemingly down-to-earth woman. But then I started thinking about it, and I read this morning, in preparation for our podcasting, Frank Bruni in the New York Times wrote this piece about her running, and I read it, and he kind of said all the things that I'm feeling. And although at first I was sort of gung-ho about this Cynthia Nixon thing, and I do think that, well, I will just say that I feel like we're living in this time where we give celebrity a lot of power, and not always never always. I just feel like. Oh, now I'm getting nervous. But
no, say it.
Cynthia, are you listening?
So this is not a personal attack.
This is not a person. I just feel like she doesn't have the experience, and maybe she would want to start someplace other than governor.
Like a mayor.
Like a mayor. Like a seat on the council of something. I don't know, because... And I do believe that people have multiple skills, and sometimes people don't want people to be talented in many ways. And perhaps Cynthia Nixon always wanted a political career. I have no idea, and she also happens to be a really great actor. But I do think you should start at a different level, and just because you're famous doesn't necessarily mean that you have the skills to perform that particular job. I'm sure she will surround herself with fantastic people who can help her do that. But yeah, I think it would be a little hypocritical of me to just support Cynthia because she's married to a lady and I like her. Yeah. When if anyone else did this, I would say that is outrageous.
Well, Christine Quinn is she slammed her for
she's a little aggressive.
Yeah, she's aggressive.
Might have
what is your stance
anger
on
problem.
Miss Thing? I thought it was really rude or terrible for her to slam
rude.
her.
I thought Cynthia handled it in a really classy way.
Yeah.
So when she did this little celebration at Stonewall, I'll just read you what I said. She said,
y'all
Albert
come with quotes and notes.
She said, I just want to say tonight that she was technically right. I don't have my certificate from the Department of Lesbian Affairs, but in my defense, there's a lot of paperwork involved. So she kind of handled it with a really cute, I'm going to laugh this off. You were catty.
Yeah.
And let's just call a spade a spade.
Is there a softness for her because she is lesbian? Do we completely open and honest? Would you vote for her based on the lesbian?
Oh, I'm definitely voting for her.
1,000% forget everything I just said.
I don't care that she has no skills. No, I don't know. I also feel remember when Arnold, the Terminator, ran for...
I hate that you call him the Terminator.
I feel also if this were a white man who is an actor, people would care a little less. Maybe that's wrong to say.
So.
But yeah, I don't know. I'd like to hear what she has to say, and I don't know. We'll see, I guess.
I've liked everything I've heard her talk about so far, and she's a lot more informed than I thought she was, which makes me feel good about her running. I'm not totally decided yet, but it's interesting, and it's also an interesting time for her to be running. I mean, now is as good a time as any.
Yeah.
Look who's in.
I'm just wondering then if that means that now, politicians are obsolete. Are we just going to be famous for something and then run?
Yeah, I know.
I mean,
big position. I mean, yes, apparently that's what's happening.
I guess so, which kind of makes it sad too, because I think it makes kids just want to be famous. That's the beginning is fame, which is pretty sad.
Instagram is so. I feel my niece is 16. And I see her Instagram and sort of the way that everyone interacts on there. And I'm like, oh, yep, you all think you're famous.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Yeah,
but I think we're not, I don't know that we're doing right by the kids.
Yeah.
With all the social media and all the 15 minutes of fame or whatever we're doing.
Now, you brought up something, you said you compared it to Arnold Schwarzenegger, and you said Arnold the Terminator, as you said. I apologize for misquoting you. Something I was reading that I didn't really fathom is the sexism that kind of affects lesbians and how they exist in the world. Do you have an opinion on that? How, for instance, one of the, they compared... Even, what am I trying to say here? So they compared gay men to gay women in terms, going back to representation. And there was a essay, and I don't have it up, and damn it, I'm trying to prove this point. But it was this young queer middle schooler, and they did this essay. And going back to the over-sexualization of lesbians, she mentioned sexism in that as well. What are you guys' thoughts on that as well? And how it relates to...
This is something that I've thought about. a lot. And I don't know what it's like to be a gay man, so I cannot say. But as a woman in general, there's so much sexism, and there's so much unwanted attention from men. So then when you take the fact that lesbians don't have the connection to power, like being married to a man or with a man, and they don't desire the penis, I think that a lot of men find that really threatening. And they try to sort of devalue being a lesbian and make it into some male sexual fantasy, when really it's pretty threatening. And this whole idea that, you know, husbands will let their wives sleep with other women but not other men. I would watch out. I would definitely watch out. But yeah, that I feel like it's sexism and then some.
Yeah. I also find that it's one extreme or the other. It's turned into a sexual fantasy, or I find that when that route isn't working out for them, I become like their bro, and they talk to me in a way that I don't want to talk to you about, like, women that way. Yes. It's like this need to connect with me on a certain level because that's like the one common ground. I don't know. It's really bizarre.
Yeah, they want to relate somehow.
Right. Yeah. And it's like, oh, wait, hitting on you's not working. Huh.
I can't just treat you like a normal person.
Right.
That would be weird.
What do you think the biggest misconception is about lesbians? I asked this I had 2 trans guests on last week, and I asked them that question as well. And they were, that they're like sexual they only exist in the world as sexual beings. Or they're sexual like objects, basically.
Yeah. I mean, there's a number of stereotypes. Which one shall I address?
I know. Which one is the most?
So many to pick
from. The one that drives you crazy the most.
I think it's probably for me what I said earlier, which was the sexualization of women. Because I guess the young queer person that you were referring to probably means like fantasizing about lesbians, but not taking the sex between 2 women seriously.
Right.
Feeling like if there's not a penis involved, what could they possibly be doing?
It's not really sex.
Right. It's not really.
Obviously.
I've had so many like progressive women, you know, who probably would love to try it, or, you know, but I've had so many people who seem very progressive and open-minded being like, what did 2 women do? Well, if I have to explain it to you, it's pretty amazing.
You're not doing it right.
You're not doing it. You're not doing it. But so that, I think it's that. The sex not being a valid thing.
I mean, I agree with that. I mean, this is a little thing, but that lesbians are cheap. This is a really...
I hate that. I feel the need to overcompensate and pay for everything.
Wait.
I will tip
also, I'm broke.
This is why I'm in heaven. I've never heard that before.
Oh, totally.
It's a thing.
It's a thing.
It's totally a thing.
Really?
And actually, I was reading about this recently.
Because lesbians are cheap.
Right?
Cheap asses. Go ahead.
Lesbian.
Oh, wow.
Giving me a bad name.
Oh, my God. Okay, go. Tell me your story.
No, this is just like a separate thing when we were talking about lesbian publications recently. The number of them have diminished. I think now there's AfterEllen.com, which almost went away, and there's Autostraddle. And they're not funded predominantly by ad space because, I don't know, advertisers, I think, are like operating under this assumption that lesbians, like, there's no money to be made there, which is so interesting. Subaru figured out
that
they could make a coin.
Did you say Subaru?
Which leads us back to the L word.
Wait, what?
It's like the official
sponsor of lesbianism.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Yeah.
See, there is so much. Wait, what?
Both Jess and I drive Subaru.
That's
how is that so? Like, how does
that is the token lesbian
vehicle
of choice.
Give me something else. I need one more little trinket. Bad tippers,
I mean, you know, the U-Haul.
Tippers. Oh, the U-Haul. Like moving in on the second date.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I know about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That whole thing.
God, Subaru is the proud sponsor of
it's
lesbians.
It's true,
I did not
maybe
know
like
that.
Bad Style.
I'm
wearing a t-shirt, by the way.
You look great.
Amazing.
Oh,
thank you.
But no, that's definitely a thing.
Yeah, like not good style.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sort of frumpy, if you will.
If you had to go back, and I know this is a super corny question, I always like to hear it. If you had to go back and give your younger self advice about coming out or about being a lesbian,
Lock
what
the
that
door.
means to you, don't send a fax. What would that be?
Jess.
Oh boy.
I know, I do always start. I always look to you.
No, I'm like, well.
For a period of time, I always found myself trying to be more palatable in some way. It's like I couldn't be too gay or too I found myself like wanting to be more feminine, even though that didn't feel authentic to me,
right,
because maybe that was more palatable to people.
Right.
So just being more authentically myself, and having found that sooner would have been cool.
Yeah.
And feeling like that was okay.
I love that, because that relates to so many people across the, like, everyone kind of has that same kind of thing, in depending on like kind of what environments they operate in.
Right.
Because I've definitely had that same thing when I was much younger. I would like just try to operate and not be too gay, but just like
make people feel comfortable.
Yeah,
with your level of
whatever that means in whatever realm.
Right.
Yeah.
And now I don't give a damn. It is.
I hear that.
No. I wear my dyke shirt. Other Wild. Out and about.
Speaking of, I have this from Other Wild.
I love Other Wild.
I love that you brought that up.
Oh
Jessica, my friend Jessica is going to die when I say her.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, this is from Other Wild. I love Other Wild.
Very out of the loop. What?
Other Wild. Oh, now we have a trinket on you. Other Wild is this really. I always call it like a feminist store, because it's not like a lesbian store, but they are very. I think the owners are lesbians. Right?
I think so.
Yeah, from LA, and it's on First and First. They did a pop up here.
It's like a little. You walk down the stairs into
a closet.
Yeah.
Haven into the closet. You can buy things like a doormat that says "Homo Sweet Homo."
Yes.
Yeah. It's a really cute.
God.
You got to go. It's
really
super
cool.
super cute
Okay.
stuff.
Yeah.
Shout out to Other Wild.
Thank you, Other Wild.
We'll take some shirts if you want to. Or any of your
size medium.
How about you? Don't think you got out of that question.
No, I thought we maybe.
Other Wild 3.
I agree with Jess for sure, and I also think I would tell myself, you are worthy of all the things, like the love of another person fully. I've tended to date in coming out. When I came out, and sort of, I think the response from my family not being so great, and just the time that I grew up in. And also my dad is, I look like the whitest person you could ever see, but my dad is half Lebanese and half Syrian. And there was a lot of that. It's a beautiful and amazing culture. But there's not a lot of gayness in it currently.
No.
Where there is, but it's not. So anyway, my extended family is incredible. But coming out and coming up in that, I feel like I've tended to move towards unavailable women, because I don't sort of feel like I am worthy, I guess. Yeah, it's weird to say that out loud. But yeah, I would tell myself that I'm worthy.
Oh, a little therapy session we got.
Oh my God. Do I have to pay you now?
You do. You can.
Okay.
I'll send you my invoice.
Okay.
Well, that's it, guys. We have ran out of time. Thank you guys for coming.
When are we doing this again?
Whenever you want to. When the L word comes back on, can we do it?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Can we do an L word?
Commentary.
The theme song will remain the same, correct?
I really hope so.
Okay.
For the show, or for the I thought for the
both.
preview. I was like,
Both. Maybe next time we could get like a cast of the L word as well.
I think Sarah Shahi.
Yeah, definitely.
That would be pretty
Sarah
amazing.
Shahi, yeah.
Tell everyone where they can find you on the socials.
I am Kat Yezbak, CATYEZBAK at everything.com. I'm only on Instagram and Twitter. That's where you can find me.
Okay.
I am the girl in a bow tie.
Oh,
I love that.
Thanks.
The bow tie is amazing.
Thank you.
I'm glad we got the video. Can you show the?
Where's the camera?
The camera is right over
here.
here. It's up here.
It's right in the microphone. Wow.
Those cute bow ties.
Thank you.
Adorable.
Thank you. About to launch my official site and Springline.
Oh, you'll have to come back and tell us all about it.
I would love to.
Awesome. And of course, it's the Privy Podcast on Instagram, Twitter. Wait, are we on anything else? No, I think that's it. Soon to have a website. We are working, girl. There's so much to tell y'all. And yeah, I think that's it. The closing are always like the worst thing because you just
don't want
to say bye. You're just like, no, you don't, like, do you say bye?
It's like
see you next
up
time.
The phone
you
with,
won't
like,
say,
mom.
Yeah,
Catch you later.
It is.
You need like a good,
linger.
witty catchphrase or something.
I do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you have one?
Nope.
No? Okay. So for this week, it'll just be awkward. So see you next.
It's like that awkward hug, and then you keep walking in the same direction.
Because the thing is, well, now they can see me, but before it's like, you don't say see you next time or catch you next week.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening. You can hear me next week. Bye.
Bye.